No. This time, I was in love with a beautiful girl. This was my love. This is Pauline Rubinstein. She was old 16 years. I was older than she was. When I have to go to the front on the battlefield, she come to me to tell me goodbye. The sun set down. It was a red sky, and we took in the arms. We create a song for us for goodbye in Polish. Niech mój śpiew wśród nocnej ciszy wzruszy serce Twe. Ach, Ty miła, moja luba, chodź w objęcia me.
A border war breaks out between the Soviet Union and the Polish Republic, which fears that Russia will once again be a threat to its freedom.
When Poland fight for her freedom, we was interested to fight together with the Polish for our freedom. But when the Polish army was surrendered by the Bolsheviks, then was rumors that the Jewish people are traitors. And so General Haller, he gave the orders to all Jewish from the battlefield to concentrate in one camp. This was Jablonne. We was prisoners, close to 10,000 soldiers. My obóz Jablonna, nadzieja strasznie plonna, na dwór rzucono nas jak śmieci wór, na dwór, na dwór.
Officially, these soldiers were exonerated after a fight in the parliament, but Jews begin to realize that their enemies are more powerful than their friends. Jews enjoy the legal rights of all Polish citizens. They vote in national elections, elect members to the parliament. As a minority, they are given the right to elect their own local governing boards. But things are bad on both the Polish street and the Jewish street. The destruction caused by the war and the loss of Poland's traditional Russian markets create enormous poverty, particularly in the small towns, whose economic role has long been in decline. These Jews, lining up for visas, are among the last to emigrate freely. The doors to America virtually close in 1924, and other countries adopt the same closed-door policies. Anti-Semitism, rooted in a 1,000-year history of economic, social, and religious differences, is inflamed by poverty. Anti-Jewish riots, known as pogroms, break out, particularly in small towns. Bertha Frost-Zaltz grows up in the small town of Kobyshev. She speaks to us of her odyssey to a wider world.
In May 1919, they start out pogroming in Poland, start those big pogroms. Our town, too, was very bad hit. It was again another story that everybody had nothing. I decided for myself that I'm leaving the house, going. Where? The nearest, biggest place was Krakow. In my imagination, it was the right world. But there was a problem of shoes. It was December, and I didn't have shoes. My father managed to buy a piece of leather to make soles. My brother had brought home a military coat, And from this piece of material left from the military coat, we made the top of the shoes. I came to Krakow the beginning of January 1920. It was a very severe winter that time. I had sisters in Krakow and relatives. After 2 weeks in a certain factory, I got a job. My aim was to work and to go to school. In Krakow, I was living in a Hasidic environment. Which was a head of the rabbinical court in Krakow. And I had to be very careful. They should know that I'm not observing the Sabbath. I took different lessons Saturday, like English, like music, like painting, and so on. So I was busy all day Shabbos too, but nobody knew about it.
This quest for wider horizons becomes, in other circles, an open and organized way of life, and not at all separate from being Jewish.
I grew up in a religious home. My parents were religious people. My father believed in God, but he didn't believe in the rabbi. God is God, and the rabbi is the man. And second, everybody can do what he wants. That's not his business. His business with God is his business. Traditional people in Vilna could understand that a new generation grows up. The tradition was going parallel to the secular life, not losing too much. For example, you had 100 synagogues. Each profession, he had his own synagogue. Every Friday night, all children who were anti-religious, which I said, all Zionists, labor Zionists, communists, Shomrat Sayer, and all the 5 boys and 1 girl. And but Friday night, everybody was on the meal, to have the meal. On Saturday at 12 o'clock, everybody was on the show to have the meal together with the father. I went to the synagogue every Saturday with my father until Bar Mitzvah. But the young generation already, secular life took over in Vilna between the First World War and the Second World War. It was the golden age of secular Jewish culture in Vilna. That's the opening of the Evo. We put a foundation for the new building. So we collected everything what is connected with Jewish life, with Jewish history. We had great Jewish scholars. That's Dr. Tzemach Shabbat, Dr. Weinreich, Cherikova, founders of the Evo. A lot of poets, we had a lot of writers, we had workers who were interested in the Yiddish life, Yiddish culture. And for us, Jewish culture was one of the, like you go to a temple, that's our God, that's our creation from centuries. And everybody of us felt that we are part of that. For example, I remember going around and collecting all kind of folklore. And everybody was proud to have an organization like the Evo. That's me. On the left, Shloime Kowalski.
This adaptation of modern models to the needs of the Jewish community, this was a part of this cultural revolution that was going on, in which Vilna participated and was perhaps pioneering to some extent. One example would be a special school for mentally disturbed children.
It was unusual. That was one woman. She was a great psychologist, Vita Levin, and she decided that Jewish children, retarded children, they can learn something, and to organize a school for them. Then we had a school for children from the street.
Jewish juvenile delinquents, which the courts would turn over. Another example would be Montessori-type schools, of which, yes, in Vilna. In fact, I myself attended a Montessori kindergarten. At a time when such institutions, not only in Poland, but even in Western Europe, were very rare. Our teachers who traveled abroad, who obtained their education abroad, came back to serve the masses, to serve the lower classes of the Jewish population.
That's one of the summer camps for very poor children from the Yiddish schools.
Für meine Kinderjahren, a schöner Tag, a lichtiger, für meine Kinderjahren.
When Vilna became a Polish city, the official language became Polish. It was not a big problem for the bulk of the Jewish population linguistically because they were always Yiddish speaking. It was also not a big problem for us children. We were young enough to learn Polish. But it was a problem for my parents. The switchover wasn't easy for them, and they never learned Polish as well as they spoke Russian. This was the time when new horizons opened up for Yiddish. We were sent to Yiddish schools, and we attended first the elementary school and then the high school.
I went to the Yiddish gymnasium, that means a high school, and everything except Polish language, Polish history, Polish literature was taught in Yiddish. Everything you learn in a high school, mathematics, chemistry, geography, Yiddish literature, physics, what more you have? Gym in Yiddish, play basketball in Yiddish.
But we paid a price for it. Our diploma was not recognized by the educational institutions, and I had to spend additional 2 years in a Polish teaching high school in order to earn my diploma and be admitted to a university.
It was a difficult transition because my thinking was everything in Yiddish. And you come to a Polish society where you have to start thinking in Polish. But you learn that, you have to learn that, because you lived in Poland, and you are Polish a little.
The Polish and foreign universities provide a small but growing number of Jews a doorway to the professions and the arts. Henryk Rubilicht, who himself becomes a businessman, remembers the promising careers of his brothers and sisters.
This is my brother, Felix. He was a sculptor, a student of Dunikowski, the great Polish sculptor. Also the teacher in the school, in the Volksschule, in the medicine sanatorium. He teach them arts and crafts. This is my sister, Halina. She was in university, and she finished the doctor in bacteriology. She got a bacteriology laboratory. This was in Warsaw. This is her husband. He was a businessman. He was together with the laboratory. This is my younger sister, Natalia. She is wonderful. She finished her education as painter, as sculptor, and she created a school theater for the youth. For the future, that the youth will be educated in arts, poetry, theater. They call them the Musa. Every week was a matinee for the children. And she makes stage designs for this student theater. This is my sister Bellarina. When she was young, she was a teacher in gymnasium. This was very interesting. In the First War, a German created courses on Yiddish for Jewish teachers.